Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and today we are hunting Panleons, and we are doing a controlled cost hunt. So we are doing a 50 PED controlled cost hunt at high efficiency. And what my goal is to see whether we come out on top or not. I've had this theory that there is a high efficiency line. My goal is to see if I've crossed that threshold. There are some techniques that might help that. Things that we're doing, we're using Buchan's spare rifle. The only amp I have on it is the Headshot 2 scope, which is just a skill modification bonus, to my knowledge. I don't even think it affects efficiency any on the rifle. Oh, it does, very, very minorly. I think it brings it up like a touch. Let's we'll detach that for a second. So 0.2%, not statistically significant by any stretch, but it's a little bit. I don't have any B101s here, so I'm not going to have any of those to use. And of course, we are going to have Whiskers out for shits and giggles. So let's get started. Before we get too deep into it, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you will get copies of The Modern Entropian, which addresses all of the needs of the modern Entropian and Entropia universe, and Personal Finance for Gamers, which fits all the needs of gamers in their real life for being a member, and thank you so much for your support. Oh yeah, I still have a leftover loot pill from yesterday. I had a Panleon fall through the hill here, and I couldn't get the loot, and I'm not going to waste that money. I downed a loot pill. For shits and giggles. The other thing I want to say is that this is my first produced show in a while. Most of the time, I'm fairly 100% off the cuff. This time, I took down some notes on what I really wanted to talk about. Wanted to try to get back into the habit as I get ready for 2021, but also because I wanted to make sure I had my head straight. And it's not like I got to follow a script, you know what I'm saying? So bear with me as I kind of get back into the whole swing of having some sort of production ahead. Before, when I was doing like the Modern Entropian segments, it was produced, but it was produced in that I was taking notes I had from the book I wrote to produce the shows. It's not the same as coming up with notes and going through it and deciding things. And my last 3 shows or so haven't had any production at all. I just had a topic and I ran with it, and I happened to make it throughout the full show, so that's good. So just bear with me. In my previous shows, I talked about things like building a network, and I talked about the Sweat Cartel and how that is a network of players that really got together and came up with, whoops, oh well, crap. This is what happens when you don't pay attention. There we go. Thankfully I'm not wearing armor, so I don't have to worry about taking a little bit of extra damage. And so it comes across that there's a couple of things you have to think about when you get into a game like an Entropia universe, right? In Entropia, the line is a lot grayer than in other games, but only sort of. See, in games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, right? You can play you or you can play a character, and sometimes that line can be pretty gray. You know what I'm saying? You're the rogue, and so you do the roguish things, but to your friends, you're still you, and it depends on whether you're in character or out of character. It's kind of like playing D&D, but with a significant amount of meta. And so there is that whole extension of, is this me or is this my character? And for a lot of people, that line doesn't matter much. Because for them, it's a, gotta take my vest off. It's freaking warm in here. For them, it's a game. And they get in, they do the character thing. Like, a good example, Lorespade, who is another, he's a fantastic Entropia Universe content creator, but he's also a content creator in Fallout 76. And in Entropia Universe, he's pretty much a straight-laced hunter. Real money's on the line. He helps people out for the most part. He has done some like PvP stuff, but never in lootable. In Fallout, he's a raider. and he plays the character of a raider. He'll steal your shit. But real money isn't on the line in Fallout. It's all in game. At most, all you lose is some time. And it's part of the game. Now, piracy is a part of this game. But because this game deals in real money, he doesn't cross that line. Therefore, his character in Fallout is a raider, which I think fits his personality to a certain extent, but he has his limits. Whereas in this game, he's just another person who does his hunting and does his crafting and does his stuff. When you play Entropia Universe or any MMO, you really have to decide whether your avatar is a character or is an extension of you. Like when I created this avatar, originally it was to bring a character that I had made in a book that I have written, which is currently not out. It's in the editing process. Whether or not I'll decide to finally publish it or not is up for grabs. But he was the head of a Yakuza. And so I tailored the whole avatar to be that character. But as I got into Entropia Universe, I realized the people in Entropia Universe are not characters. In fact, far from it. The people in Entropia Universe are extensions. Their avatars are extensions of themselves. And there's very little guile in Entropia Universe. It's hard to have guile in Entropia Universe. It's a virtual world with real money in it. And when real money's on the line, a person's real personality comes out. You don't get more real than a person's money. And Entropia Universe is one of the first places that have really, and by extension, Second Life and other MMOs, and I'm going to get into that a little later. It's the place where the virtual world and the real world start to blend. When your avatar is an extension of you, and when a person recognizes you as well as or by your avatar better than they could you in real life, that says something. That means there's a lot of blending there. It means that the line has thinned. And it makes us wonder about where we come from on such platforms as to where we're going on such platforms. And I think it stands to reason we should take a few minutes to kind of look back at the development of MMOs as a whole. And then as they've progressed over time. Because, I mean, you could go all the way back to... The oldest one I can think of is Ultima Online. That was really your first... From what in my experience... I know people are going to be throwing out some older ones after I say this. The first practical MMO was Ultima Online. EverQuest came out and Neverwinter came out. Now, other MMOs came out. But, I mean, we're talking pre-RuneScape freaking graphics here, okay? This is back when mods could drop your ass in space if you were doing the wrong thing. And where you could actually kill the developer of the game in the game because he forgot to turn the God mode on. Okay? In modern MMOs, players avatars who are official don't have an off switch to God mode. Back then, they did. Which is why Lord British got assassinated a couple times. So back then, when you were in Ultima, you were a character. You played your character. It was very D&D-ish. You were a character. You went out. It's like, what ho, knave, and slash at the dragon and do the thing. And you had your friends and wahoo. You know, the real medieval feel role-playing. Very D&D-ish. But then something happened. People realized that MMOs were a way to interact with their friends. They started developing friendships over these platforms. Whereas, and I don't know if this was by design or by accident. It could have been that they were like, oh, they'll get in with their friends and the friends will all play together. They know each other in real life. Maybe they'll be on the phone or something back before conference calling was really a big thing. You know, they can type to each other as chat started developing and shit like that. People started building reputations in the game. And then EQ came out. And people started developing friendships within the game. And these are people you've never met in real life. So the MMO went from being just a role-playing game to being a social platform. Now, this is most obvious in World of Warcraft, where there are players who almost have a second life, no pun intended, in World of Warcraft. and even more so in Second Life, which had come out before that, Second Life is a blend. We're going to address them in a second, but when it comes to socialization and using World of Warcraft as a social net, or MMOs as a social network, World of Warcraft really led the pack from a, for lack of a better term, from a user base perspective. The total population of Azeroth is greater than any other individual MMO, or at least it was for a long time. So you've got this social platform, and Lindman came out with Second Life, and he blended the use of an MMO platform with real-world economics. And before that, Entropia Universe had too, but they were more focused, at least from what I can tell, on the whole economic factor, whereas Second Life focused on the social factor. Entropia Universe was an economic platform where you could hunt mobs and make money, conceivably, whereas Second Life was a social platform where you could make some extra money. And there are people who have made livings in both platforms. But there are players in both who will do nothing but socialize. That's what they come for. They don't spend a penny. They don't do anything else. They sit there and they chat with their friends for hours on end. Like in Entropia Universe, I've never played Second Life, but in Entropia Universe, you sit in rookie chat and just hang out. Or you're in your society chat and just chat with your friends. And for some people, that's all they do for months. You know? I've been to Twin Peaks when there's just people chatting. Monria. You go to DSEC at Monria? Oh, hell yeah. There are people just standing there in DSEC, and everyone's in Monria chat. And we're having a great time. The devs are there. It's fantastic. It's a real community. And I don't think that was in the original plan for these platforms. I think that they had never really conceived of themselves as being huge drivers of social interaction and relationships. But whether it was by accident or it was by design, that's what ended up happening. And so now we've got these huge social platforms. Entropia Universe, more than 1 million players. Second Life, more than 1 million players. World of Warcraft peaked at like 10 million players, and they've slawed off because the writers got lazy. And yes, I do reserve the right to rag on World of Warcraft because I grew up on Warcraft. I grew up on Warcraft 1. I actually grew up on Warcraft 2, but I played Warcraft 1. I grew up on Warcraft 2. I played Warcraft 3. They came out with World of Warcraft. I was hesitant. I resisted. I finally jumped into it. I loved it, and then they fucked it up. I will forever be pissed at World of Warcraft. This is the hill I will die on. Sorry. But then something else happened. Before I jump back on my soapbox of salt. Entropia Universe. Mindart came up with this idea. What if this medium could be an economic platform? They figured they'd do microtransactions. This was really the first game, air quotes, first platform to utilize microtransactions. And out of all of the developers, I think Mindark is the only one that got microtransactions truly correct from the get-go. Because you've got like Epic, and you can buy the hats, and or Valve, I guess, started off with Team Fortress. You can buy the hats and the clothes and the cosmetics and get the loot boxes where you buy keys to it, which is pissing a bunch of senators off because their kids are whining that they're not getting the toy that they want. And they said, well, what if we made the microtransactions something predictable? You can buy this sword, and in real world dollars, the sword is going to cost $1. And the sword lasts for X number of hits, and it decays over time, and then you've got to buy another one. But the best part is that sword is made by another player who sells it at markup. So instead of buying it for $1, you're actually buying it for closer to $1.50. $1.50 isn't a huge expense for a couple hours of gameplay. I mean, How many quarters did we, I'm 36. How many quarters did my sorry ass go through in an hour in a friggin' arcade in the 90s? Okay, yeah, I see y'all out there playing this on this platform. Y'all remember going to the arcade with a pile of quarters? You'd burn through a $10 bill in 2 hours. If you were lucky, depending on the game you were playing. And, they had that racing game. It was a buck a play. And those races didn't last very long. Because you could sit in the whole chair and you were riding around. Yeah. And of course, you could never beat the damn thing. The steering was awful. But they saw an opportunity. And they're like, hey, instead of bilking kids out of quarters, they can deposit a little bit of money, buy things off other players, create a real economy, and see if this works. And hopefully not piss the government off where they shut us down. And 17, 18 years later, holy shit, it worked. It really worked. And so now they've got this fully developed economy. And it's been repeated. EU and Second Life came out at about the same time. They had different methodologies. Whereas EU runs on its economy. From what I understand in Second Life, it's much less so. Now, I've never been on Second Life. If you've played Second Life, please drop a comment, correct my sorry ass. But from what I understand, most of the stuff in Second Life, it was a secondary economy. That was real world money. I mean, you could buy Linman dollars, and yeah, you could withdraw them, but that wasn't really what you use them for. Unlike here, where the primary focus of the money you dump in is to buy ammunition or things off other players. Okay? All of my clothing, except for... Okay, I can't say that. My jacket and I believe my skull mask, although that might have been a drop. My boots, most definitely, player made. The pants were an Arcadia automatic thing, and the shirt, of course, came from the 15th anniversary. And the skull mask might be a Halloween drop, but the important stuff, and they go for good markup. They really do. The ring, of course, is a box drop, but I've got other clothes, and some of it's crafted and some of it's not. But the crafted stuff all goes to another player. Mindark doesn't see a penny of it except for auction fees, which are relatively small. And so they came up with this idea, and they really honed in on the idea. And Second Life did something similar, except players used their skills to make things like art, which they sold to other players, or they bought islands, land areas, and rented them out to other players. And it created its own economy. These are the two real cash economy places that actually exist. Then you have the pseudo one, which is EVE Online. And it's a pseudo real cash economy because the stuff inside have a real world value, but you can't do anything with it. And the real world value comes out of the special currency they created. This is something I should have looked up beforehand. Trying to look it up. It's based on basically the gold that you use to buy ISK. And I'm trying to find what it's called. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, Plex, that's it. So, you buy Plex using real money. You can trade Plex for ISK. ISK is the in-game currency. Plex can also be used to pay for your access fees, from what I understand. I've never played EVE Online, so I'm still figuring that shit out. I probably should, just so I understand the game better. Lore Spade, I'm going to shout out him again. He also plays EVE Online, so go check him out. But it's more of a pseudo-real cash economy because you can't withdraw ISK from EVE, and selling assets in EVE for real-world money is against terms of service. So because of that, it doesn't equate 100%, but because of that methodology, there is an equivalency. the last of the actual real cash economy games, and this one's an up-and-coming, is Virtueverse. And it's going to have a lot of the same features in the economic sector as Entropia Universe because, well, money's money and there's not a whole lot you can do to differentiate it. The exchange is going to be different. The things you can do are going to be different. And, oh, by the way, they introduced fishing, which is the place that I think Entropia Universe totally missed the boat. And the frying pan is a weapon. Can't wait to get my first one. So these are all things where they've turned a game into an economic platform. And by turning it into an economic platform, they have blurred the line between virtual and real life. This means that we are no longer in a game. This is a virtual platform for real world action. All the assets are digital, everything going on in it is digital, but realistically speaking, this is real life. And so you're going to cater the way you do things differently on a platform like Entropia Universe from the way you would do things on a game like WoW. Because you can't really play a player effectively on a platform where there are real things at stake. If you screw someone on a platform like Entropia Universe, they're gonna remember, because that was real money you bilked them out of in one way or another. And not only that, but you're gonna notice, because you did it in Entropia Universe, you're more willing to do it in mundane life. And while Entropia Universe is probably the most libertarian place in existence, insofar as that's possible, on a platform, in real life there are laws against things like piracy. Unless you're, off the Somali coast. So, you really want to be careful about how you look at platforms like this. And I think that it's important for us to think about how we have developed as a culture to come as far as we have, to where these platforms have become so important to our lives. And there's nothing more poignant on that fact by the fact that a lot of these platforms have as much become dating apps as platforms for anything else. And I'm serious about that. My last girlfriend, I met through World of Warcraft. Not gonna lie, not ashamed. We were together for 5.5 years. It was an amazing relationship. Unfortunately, we just ended up going opposite directions with where we wanted to go in life. And you know what? That happens. But fact of the matter is new relationships are formed every day on these MMOs. I would be willing to bet dollars, real world money, that the MMO industry as a whole has been more successful as a dating app than dedicated dating apps. I would bet money, and I am not a gambling person. And so that really tells us how we look at these things has changed over time. Because it has. The way we look at platforms has changed. The way we deal with people has changed. The way we accept the way things are has changed. And not only that, but it's actually changed the shape of entertainment as well. And if you're wondering how that is, well, think about this. You're sitting in a chair, or maybe you're just listening to this in your ears like a podcast, because it's kind of designed to do that this way, and you're listening to someone playing a video game on YouTube. Without something like Entropia Universe, this couldn't exist. This whole podcasting sphere, in-game play, let's play, podcast, whatever you want to call it. And we're not talking the classic podcasts like Rogan or Ruben or whatever. We're talking where it's someone talking over gameplay. This space could not exist without platforms like Entropia Universe. And they would not have developed without it. Because when you're playing a game like Borderlands, or you're playing a game like COD or Battlefield, unless you do the gameplay first and then talk over the gameplay second, it doesn't work. You're too focused. You're too focused on what you're actually doing. That's a cool ship. That's the crack. I think that's from Next Island, and I don't think it's space-worthy, which is really unfortunate. Without this opportunity, this space wouldn't exist. So I think it'd be worth time for all of us to really think about how MMOs, the MMO space, has really changed how we interact with people, how it's changed the way we look at life, our worldview, how we even look at how money is used. Because remember back in the day, I'm sure that you older folks like me, well, older insofar as you can be, saw the first subscription-based games, and you're like, I ain't spending no $15 a month on a game. Why would I do that? I can go to the store and buy a game for $50. I can play it whenever I want, and I pay for it once. And now you're like, yeah, I've got 3 MMOs going. I'm spending $45 a month, and it's not that big a deal. It's changed our perspectives. It's totally changed our perspectives. And it's that perspective shift that makes me think it's not really possible to play a character on these platforms anymore. Not really. I mean, yeah, you can have like the servers on some, like on World of Warcraft, you have the RP servers, where when you go in there focused on playing a character, right? It's just like playing Dungeons and Dragons. But even when you play Dungeons and Dragons, part of your real personality comes out in your character, even though you're technically acting. In those spaces, you're really acting. So yeah, it does make a certain amount of sense that you can play in character. But, and I just ran out of production. But if you think about it, a part of you will always be in the characters you play. You can see this in real life actors. In Iron Man. Where is the line between Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. as a personality? Right? Not in real, not in the way their personal abilities are, because obviously Robert Downey Jr. is an actor, and Tony Stark is a, hang on, I want to get this right. Playboy genius, billionaire philanthropist. But the personalities, if you look at their personalities, you can't parse the two, you know? And I don't know if it's because the character of Tony Stark wore off on Robert Downey Jr., or if Robert Downey Jr. put himself into Tony Stark. And so you really have to think about, if you're going to start playing a character like this, you're going to see that character coming out in yourself. And you're going to realize it's not that you're playing a character. You're letting a piece of yourself out that was always there and you could never express before. Which is why I always say, take care in who you are on an MMO. The intermix between personality and reality is very, very thin. You know, they really explored this in Sword Art Online, where players, for those of you who aren't anime fans, Weeb alert, in the anime Sword Art Online, which I think is worth a watch even if you're not a huge anime fan, just for the plot. Really understand where these things could go. And it's kind of a cautionary tale, but at the same time, it's an adventure and action and all of the things that could happen in this case. They get trapped in the game, and it's a death game. If you die in the game, you die in real life. I'm sure most of you are like, yes, Julian, we've watched Sword Art Online. Just bear with me. The players in Sword Art Online, where they thought, especially the ones who thought life was consequence-free, their true personalities came out because there were no consequences. Yeah. And if you think for a second that you in the same situation would not do the exact same thing, you're lying to yourself. It's a thin line between the persona you give to the people that you know, the persona you have at work, the persona you have with your family, the persona you have among your friends, And then the true you, which is usually something in the middle of all that, maybe a little bit rougher around the edges, and the only people who might know who that person is your spouse and maybe your kids. And even then, that's a maybe. Because there are some people who can really separate that from their true selves. But when you're in a game or when you're on a virtual platform, you don't need to hide that shit because it's anonymized. You're using a fake name. You're not showing your real face. You're doing things that you otherwise, in a lot of cases, you can't otherwise do. But you're interacting with people. And behind that anonymized avatar, you have real people. And that's all there is to it. But you don't think of them as real people, you think of them as pixelized avatars. You know, in an Entropia universe, if I go to a PvP zone and I shoot someone, their avatar dies. But it's a video game, so they just revive. The consequences are the same as if we were playing paintball or if we were playing airsoft. There's no permanent consequence. I wouldn't do that in real life because there's a permanent consequence. Not just the legal consequence, but the action has permanent consequence to it. You know, I mean, I'm just talking in the, you know, I wouldn't go to an arena and, you know, start shooting. I do sports fighting, but I accept certain consequences of that. And while death is frankly a possibility, it's an extremely low probability. In the type of sports fighting I do, you know, I could catch a sword to the side of the head. My helmet fails. It's a rebated blade, which means it's not sharp. You know, they're moving too hard, and it cuts me across the temple, and I get a concussion, and I have a brain aneurysm, and I die, right? If you can calculate the probability of that happening, then you're a far better person at math than I am. What I don't do is I don't step into an arena with a sharp weapon and no armor and say, ho, have at you, because that's a really stupid fucking thing to do. See how that works? By extension, in Entropia universe, I can run up to an avatar, armored or not. We can smack each other until one of us dies, and the only consequence is one of us has to stand there like a jackass while our health goes back up, or we spend a couple of PED and healing items. Not a huge consequence. But there is a personality difference. If you don't have a head for doing competition like that, you're not going to PvP. Especially not with real money on the line. There are people who don't have a head for that type of visceral competition. They won't play first-person shooters. They won't play in PvP zones, or they'll avoid PvP altogether. You see a lot of it in Fallout 76. Fallout 76 at one time was a place where PvE and PvP really kind of blended. And you wouldn't really engage in PvP until you shot back, but you still lost a little bit of health and you could be chased a little bit. And there was some overworld PvP. And then people complained because they weren't of the type to want to do that thing, and they just wanted to play their PvE game and not have to worry about it. And so Bethesda cordoned off the PvP zones, much like Entropia Universe did, and said only these areas are PvP. And even then the PvEers bitched because the areas that PvP is 100% legal give advantages. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. And that's what all the PvPers are like. It's like, look, this is a PvP zone. It doesn't matter that you only wanted to PvE here. If you're going to be in the PvP zone, you accept the consequences of that choice and accept the fact that PvP could happen. You know, when I go to Orthos, oil field, on Calypso, and I'm just mining for oil or I'm shooting bots, if someone shoots me, I don't sit there and whine and bitch and moan and complain because I'm standing my ass in a PvP zone understanding that could happen. But that's where the personality differences are. Your real personality comes out when you put yourself in a place for those things to happen. Now, here there's no real permanent consequence except a little bit of loss of, you know, a minuscule amount of money, right? Which, honestly, if you really want to, you can go out and sweat it out of mobs, and then you're not paying anything for it, IRL. You're just losing time, which, okay, that's a shitload of time, trust me. I have spent a lot of time sweating mobs the last month and a half, and I sold 16 PED worth the other day, and I've got another 10,000 bottles sitting on Calypso that I need to sell off. But when I'm doing it, I'm doing other things. It's just to make most efficient use of my time. I can sweat a mob, I can watch a show. I can sweat a mob, I worked on my 2022 political platform. I can sweat a mob, I can read the news. I can do my work for the guard. Because it doesn't take much to sweat mobs. And in addition, it helps me develop the grind mentality. And that grind mentality has not just helped me in Entropia universe, it's helped me in my real life. Because let me tell you something, my real life job has a nasty habit of being a grind. Okay, no shit, today we probably fielded 80 phone calls. My last count was 61 at 2:30 p.m. local time. Phone calls. Our office only has 4 people in it. And for some of you, that's going to be like, oh, that's not a lot of phone calls. Yeah, well, the average phone call can be anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes. That is a lot of phone calls. So your personality comes out when you are on this platform. And your personality will change as you develop on the platform. And I'm serious about that. Because the longer you're on here, the more skills you're going to gain. You're not only going to gain the raw number skills, which makes you a better Entropia avatar, but you're also going to learn the street smarts of the platform. How to avoid mobs, how to pull aggro, how to draw them back, how to fight more eco, what weapons to buy, what weapons not to buy, what clothing or ships or other things to buy, how to create a smuggler route if you transport goods between planets, which is still not the smartest thing in the world. How to fight pirates. How to be a pirate. These are the street smarts of the platform. Just like learning your rotation is in World of Warcraft. Just like learning how to lunge properly in fencing. Or how to bullseye a target when you're shooting. Whether it's with bows or rifles or pistols or whatever. You know, or how to best engage against players versus enemies against mobs in Fallout. These are all skills. And the more you develop a skill set, the more confident you get because you're becoming more competent. The more things you become competent in, whether it's virtual or in real life, the more confident you will be in yourself to become competent in more things on other places. If you let yourself. See, it's not all bad. And in fact, for the most part, I think it's good. These places have created a space for you to become competent at something in a place that you are comfortable. Because becoming competent at something is an uncomfortable experience. But once you do the thing here and you become comfortable with becoming competent, you need to get your ass out there and become competent at other things. Use the platform as a training device. And talk about wildly off topic. We talked about the development of MMOs. Now we're talking about using the MMOs as a tool. But really, one leads into the other. You want to learn how the financial world works? Play Entropia Universe for a while. The markets in Entropia Universe mimic real life so accurately, I'm surprised economists aren't in the platform just watching the market going, this is so awesome. If I went back to college as an economics major, my freaking thesis would be on this platform. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It would be on this platform. Because you don't have a better economic non-simulation than Entropia Universe, because people are putting their real ass money on the line to try and make money by doing various professions on the platform, and they're sacrificing money just like you have to do in real life in an apprenticeship program or in college in order to build up their lives in Entropia Universe. And it's like a microcosm of what real life is. And the only thing you don't have to do in Entropia Universe that you have to do in real life, you don't have to eat, you don't have to sleep, and you don't have to worry about shelter. And you know what? The expenses you'd pay for those 3 things in real life are your repair bills and your auction fees. So where is the line between virtual life and real life? I don't think there is one. The only thing this platform does that is any different from real life is the fact that I can travel to different worlds in-game, talk to people from all over Earth by simply clicking on Rookie. Yesterday, I effected a trade with a gentleman from Alaska. I've had conversations with people from Japan. I have taxied a gentleman from Russia from one planet to another. I have taxied a person from Venezuela from Camp Icarus to Boreas. Where else could I interact with people from such a diverse array of places? You know, I've interacted with people from Scotland, from Sweden, so see, the whole thing where I say create a player network doesn't just affect your in-game actions. You build those relationships, you learn how to build those relationships on the platform, you can build those relationships in real life. And nothing in this life will make you more successful than networking. Your ability to create a useful network will power you through anything. And I'm still learning. I'm still figuring this shit out. I'm far better behind this microphone than I am at networking. I go to a networking group every Thursday, 8 a.m. I have to be in this networking. I mean, we're doing it over Zoom right now because COVID, but I'm in this networking group, 8 a.m. every Thursday. I am in there. I'm in the zone. I go through the whole process. And we kick each other business. That's how the game is played. The skills you build here, doing all of that stuff, can help you in real life. You just have to have the mindset to utilize it. And then when people say, how did you become so good at networking? Or how do you deal with such monotonous bullshit? Or how is it you can deal with the changes that are happening? How is it you're reading this so easily? Played a game. Practiced. Practiced with people from all over the world. Learned their personalities, learned how they tick. I learned how to grind by grinding out mobs, by sweating them. Where you just sit there and you stare at a screen for hours. I learned how to multitask by keeping my eye on this and by doing something else. Which, okay, there's no such thing as true multitasking, but work with me here. These are all things you can do. These are all things you can learn. This is the place to do it. So where are we at? We've gone through half of our PED worth of ammo. And I have long since passed my production. If you go back, you'll actually hear where I said, and I've run out of production, and I just continued on. It just goes to show that, you know, I'm a person of tangents, if you hadn't guessed. And I do think that they do flow into each other well enough. But there have been times, and I do this with my friends, and I'll be on a topic and I'll be like, wait, How did we get here? And we'll take like 5 minutes and we'll trace back the different topics we rolled through, because it'll have nothing to do with the initial topic. But I honestly think that's what good conversation is like, you know? When the topic you start on develops into another topic, and then you tangent off on a piece of that topic, and then you manage to work your way back, or maybe you branch off fractally onto other things. And then finally you realize, oop, we're nowhere near where we started and we never finished that conversation. So you wander your way back through the rabbit hole you just dug yourself to where you initially were and continue down that trail. And I gotta say, sitting behind the microphone really helps that. It's a good place to have that type of a mindset. And for those of you who are prone to it, I hate to break it to you, if you hadn't been able to tell yet, you're just as apt to do it when you're monologuing as when you're chatting with someone. But that's why we have fun here. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't burned through all 50 PED. We're down to 20. We've gone through 3/5 of it. Let's try to check on our loot here. So we've got 359, 642, that's 10. 10 cents, 5 cents, 5 cents, 12 cents. A lot of small stuff. And then another 11 PED here. Yeah, we're probably not coming out on the profit zone. But maybe. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, and it might be that I'm literally hunting something that's too low for me to hunt efficiently, because there is that. But I always thought there's like a line where you can do the low cost hunting where it's hyper efficient, and I could be wrong. I've seen Scotty make great wins speed hunting where he's shooting things where it's like 2 shots to kill, and he's way overpowered, and there's a whole bunch of overkill, and he's just burning through things, and he comes out with a profit. And it's like, damn man, how did you do that? And it might be that our saving grace this time is the fact that we're using 0 armor. And I haven't had to heal at all. You know, it's funny. People think that they have to dump a huge amount of money into this platform to have fun. And that's not the case. This whole hunt, I set a budget of $5, right? And I decided this is what we're going to spend, or this is the cap of what we're going to spend. We're going to see how we come out. And maybe we lose and maybe we win. Markup's a thing too. That helps. I'm not sweating these mobs, which would also help. Although if this was going to be a 50 PED swunt, we would be here until the second coming. It's too much. But we do a lot. And I'll tell you what, when we hit the hour mark, we got about 12 minutes left. 50 PED or the hour mark is where I'm going to call it. And if you're still with me right now, oh, that was a good drop, 7 PED. That's going to help. It's going to help a lot, actually. If you're still with me by the time we get to there, I really appreciate it. Also, please make sure you... I wanted to give a shout out to my patrons, Red Kryptonite, Spectrum 3900, and Jay Lambertson. Thank you so much for your support. Of course, your names will be in the ending credits. And a shout out to my moderators, Kat and Captain Aubrey and Jay Lambertson, who keep my live stream chats clean and family friendly, relatively speaking. You know, they know where the line is. This has been an adventure. this whole YouTube thing. And as I approach 500 subscribers, and I could hit 500 subscribers by the time this is out. I've got 499 as of the day I'm producing this, right? Let me check to see if that's still the case. Because I'm going to say that I'm going to pop open my YouTube studio. It's going to be, congratulations, you've hit 500 subscribers. Nope, still at 499. Just hit the refresh. Yep. I'm 2.5 years into this. And although I'm not as far as I want to be, I'm still having a lot of fun. You know? I have had a wonderful time producing this content, finding out more about who I am in this space as a creator. I've made mistakes. I've learned from those mistakes. Sometimes I've been a little rougher than I probably should have been. And other times maybe I've been a little too soft. I've created and retired whole segments. But I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. The road is long. And it's not super well beaten, especially in the Entropia universe space. There are other people who have been down this path. But it's far from being a true trail. Or there's a trail, but there is no road. It's like a deer run for those of you who live in the woods. My only hope is that I can really key in on where I'm going. Oh, see, no wonder it's so long. We're only going through 1 peck per shot, not bitching, 1 peck per shot. So when I started with 50 peds, that's 5,000 rounds. Oh my god. I did not realize that much ammo was going to be like that many. Well, wait, no, because it came out with 3,000 rounds. Because we've got the total number of rounds here. I'm an idiot. So we've gone through 2/3 of our total ammo, roughly. I think it was like 3,300. I can't wait to see where Entropia Universe is going. I can't. I think especially with a competitive product coming out in Virtueverse, and yeah, they're not going to be direct competitors per se. The experience on the two platforms is drastically different. It really is. You know, if I play Virtueverse, I got to be ready to be in the zone the whole time. I can't do the casual experience like we are now. That is not a podcasting place. That is a gameplay place. I really can foresee Mindark kicking it up a notch at the end of 2021 when Virtueverse goes main. Maybe 2022 as they figure out how to, you know, what is this going to do and how should we respond to it. But I think that there is going to be a lot of good that comes in 2021 for this platform. Because Mindark's not stupid. They may be run by an eccentric rich guy, but he's not a stupid eccentric rich guy. You don't become an eccentric rich guy by being an idiot. So I can almost guarantee he's going to have a notion of what to do about this upstart that's coming along. I can't wait to see what he does. So, okay, we're nearing the 54-minute mark. We're going to call it after this mob. I was really hoping to hit 50 PED, but I can't justify turning this over an hour. Okay. And who knows, maybe I'll figure out how to produce enough content to go this long and long enough to do a full 50 PED run. It's not that I'm incapable, it's just experience. but this has been quite the grind. For those of you still with me, again, thank you so much for sticking it out. We're going to do a count up. I'm going to pull out my handy dandy calculator here. Looks like Serial put out a new Entropia Universe video. Make sure you go check out Serial Overdrive's channel too. I'm sure if you're watching me, you already watch him, but he puts out some really good content. We're going to start here with 15.26 in remaining universal ammo. Tally up our take. 32.71. Okay. Repair bill, which is 3.78. Leaving us with a total of 44.19, which gives us a loss of 5.81 PED. So, okay, not the greatest outcome. You know, we'd much rather profit than lose, but like with this, it's 801. We'll get some markup out of it. It's 101. So, you know, nothing huge. These paint cans are where it's really going to start flowing back because 173. The only problem with them is you got to have a lot of them. You know, it takes 1,000 paint cans to make a saleable stack. But over time, they'll accumulate, and you can sell them for a boatload of money. Market value 1.63. Yeah, so these will make themselves up. The rest of this, not so much. Whoa, these things are worth 300 markup? That I didn't know. That I did not know. Saving those for the future. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. As always, I appreciate all of your support. See you in the next one.